Hello, everybody. It's MJ Schwab coming to you live from Arizona. Um, First, I wanted to explain why this is a little late. To be honest with you, I am not good with days these days for some reason. Um, for some reason, I just thought that this was scheduled for later tonight, and so I'm starting this a few hours late for its intended time to be turned in. So I want to apologize for that. Everybody's doing well here. Hope everybody's doing fine where you are. Uh, it's another late night, though I find it easy to um, do this late at night. Place quiets down quite a bit. So this week, the prompt is on size and scale of government. Uh, I wanted to take it from the perspective of Dr. Livingston from this week's video assignments. His lectures were very good. I enjoyed them immensely, including his ones earlier as well. And I think those ones have a lot to do with this week's prompt as well. Size and scale of government, I think a lot of people think more towards government, really, rather than population. But it was Livingston's contention that both were important. And so I kind of went with that idea when I did this assignment. So basically, what you have is you have uh, two basic ideals. Of course, there's more than that. A lot of people chimed in on the size and scale of government. But you have Hobbes, who was more of a proponent for a larger government, and Aristotle, who thought that uh, liberty be given by, or could be given or taken away by a government, and that would directly impact one's freedom. And of course, in a Hobbesian government, you would have oppressive government that would uh, keep freedom down or keep liberty down, and may result in some people not having as much freedom as they would like to have. I think this played out very well in the late colonial period of the United States and the early Republic. What comes to mind, I think, for anybody who studies American history is the Federalists versus the Anti-Federalists. Um, the Anti-Federalists, in reality, was a collection of a lot of different kinds of people. Federalists, of course, were the ones. They weren't necessarily proposing a Hobbesian government, but they couldn't have known at that time what would transpire a federal government that looked like a Hobbesian government later on, especially by Lincoln and then beyond. Of course, today federal government is much more Hobbes than Aristotle, and even the state governments individually, some of them are more Hobbesian in nature than Aristotle as populations grew, and that's something that's important to note as well, and something that Dr. Livingston said. Uh, he said that probably the uh, closest to Aristotle's idea of government exists in Switzerland with their semi-autonomous state governments that and a federal government that may or may not be Hobbesian in nature, but that you have those states with a small population in addition to a small government individually speaking. But I think that was something that was tried here in the United States. My focus was Dr. Joseph Warren, and he's interesting. He gave many speeches, but one of the most important ones he gave, one was in 1772 after on the 2-year anniversary of the Boston Massacre. But the really interesting one is was in on the 5-year anniversary in 1775, before his death at Bunker Hill, where he came dressed in a toga in the winter, late winter, and he didn't grab that toga because it was first in line in a series of togas in his closet. He grabbed that toga because he wanted to make a point. The ancient ideals of Aristotle diffused to Rome, and Cicero is who he was channeling, I guess, if you will. He put on the robe to make a point that Cicero protested the size and scope of the Roman Empire at the time. And I think that's what Dr. Joseph Warren was doing in the United States, or, well, in colonial America, against Great Britain. He was comparing Great Britain to the Roman Empire at the time of Cicero. So that's interesting from the standpoint that this same stuff is playing out at different points in history. I like to say history doesn't really repeat itself. There are just some similarities, much like seeing a rubber ducky in a cloud. If you're looking up, if you're inclined to do so. But there are some similarities, and I think that Dr. Warren certainly was channeling the ancients, at least their political philosophy, anyway. I think that as I mentioned before, the large Hobbesian government plays out in our federal government now, and in some state governments, of course, as well. But where we have the more of the Aristotle governments are in states like the northern states where they have lesser amounts of population, and that's interesting because you see this play out, and this is why Western freedom, Western civilization thought, that political thought, is so important today. Going back to an earlier prompt, is we need to understand this. Why did these people say this? And it's especially important for us here in the United States because this is what they were trying to do. They were trying to create the Aristotle government or political philosophy, and the freedoms that come from that. You can't have freedom if you aren't given it by a power. And Hobbes, in his Hobbesian government that he proposed, is that you couldn't have liberty. You could possibly have freedom if you were on the side of the tyrannical government that was allowing you to have the freedom, but it wasn't real freedom. And I think that goes to what Hobbes believed, that this whole political philosophy thing was more of a construct, a human construct, rather than a natural right like Aristotle thought. So anyway, that's what I have to say on that. So thank you.